All right, so get this. Somebody wants to know if Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Yeah, we're diving into this sermon by Robert Breaker. This guy seems to think there's a case to be made. Now, obviously, this is a pretty sensitive topic.
Yeah.
We're not here to take sides. We're just going to dissect the content of the sermon.
Yeah.
And we'll let you be the judge.
Yeah. It's a question that comes up throughout history. I mean, remember how many people thought Hitler was the Antichrist?
That's true. Right.
It's
like clockwork.
It really is.
A powerful figure emerges. And suddenly everyone's looking for these biblical signs.
It's a fascinating thing. It's like a psychological and cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
This need to fit current events into these prophetic narratives.
For sure. So this preacher, Robert Breaker, people have actually contacted him directly about this whole Trump Antichrist theory. Apparently it's a hot topic in some circles.
Yeah, he even mentions in the sermon that he gets calls and emails about it all the time. Clearly, it's something that a lot of people are thinking about.
Okay, let's unpack this sermon then. Breaker starts with some basic info about Trump. Born June 14th, 1946. 45th and 47th president. Hosted The Apprentice. You know, the usual stuff.
Right, but then he throws in some details that are meant to, raise eyebrows, like the fact that Trump's grandmother's maiden name was Christ.
Wait, really? Her maiden name was Christ? That's a bit on the nose, isn't it?
It's definitely a detail. It makes you go, And then he drops another one. She died on June 6, 1966. 6666.
Oh, okay.
You can practically hear the spooky music playing.
All right, so he's setting the stage with these birth dates and names. But where does he go from there?
Well, he starts digging into numerology. He points to those repeating sixes in the grandmother's death date as a connection to 666, the number of the beast.
Right, classic Antichrist hunter move. But it's interesting that he's focusing on the number 6, considering how often the number 7 appears in relation to Trump.
Yeah, he does bring that up later on. He points out that Trump was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old on his first full day as president.
So we got this mix of 6s and 7s. What's the takeaway here? Is he trying to have it both ways?
I think it seems like he's trying to present a pattern, but the significance of these numbers is really open to interpretation. It depends on how you view biblical numerology and whether you believe these connections are intentional or just coincidence.
Good point. So besides the numerology, what other evidence does he offer?
Well, he spends quite a bit of time on the word Trump itself, both as a noun and a verb.
Okay, as a noun, it's pretty straightforward. A trumpet. But as a verb?
As a verb, Trump can mean to deceive. Like when you outsmart someone in a card game.
Whoa, hold on. To deceive?
Yeah. That's pretty loaded when we're talking about the Antichrist, who's often portrayed as the ultimate deceiver.
Exactly. And Breaker definitely plays up that connection. He doesn't explicitly say that the word itself is proof, but he lays it out there for the listener to consider.
It's like he's saying, hey, look at this interesting wordplay. Make of it what you will.
Exactly.
So he also delves into some more controversial territory when he starts talking about MAGA.
Make America Great Again. What's so controversial about that?
Well, Breaker claims that MAGA is a term that's used in Satanism, representing the 5th and highest degree in the Church of Satan. And he ties this into the idea of deception, suggesting that Trump's slogan is somehow linked to satanic practices.
Wow. That's a pretty bold claim. But does he offer any proof?
He doesn't provide specific sources for this information, which is something to keep in mind. It's always a good idea to do your own research and see if these claims hold up under scrutiny.
Yeah, totally agree. We're not just taking his word for it. But even if this whole MAGA connection is questionable, it definitely adds to the overall narrative that he's building.
Absolutely. He's weaving together these seemingly unrelated details, the name, the dates, the wordplay, the satanic connection, to create a sense of mystery and intrigue. It's like he's piecing together a puzzle, even if some of the pieces might not fit perfectly.
So we got numerology, wordplay, and a dash of satanic panic. Where does he go next with this whole Trump is Antichrist theory? Does he just say, yep, he's the guy, case closed?
Not quite. He actually goes on to compare Trump to a list of specific biblical characteristics of the Antichrist, point by point.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. All right, so lay it on us. What's this Obama Antichrist theory?
Well, he starts by quoting Luke 10:18, where Jesus says, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. And then he jumps right into dissecting Obama's name, focusing on Barack, specifically without the C.
Okay, and what's the connection there?
Well, he says Barack, minus that C, means lightning in Hebrew.
Hold up. So we've got lightning from the Bible verse and Barack meaning lightning. See where this is going.
Exactly. And then he claims Obama translates to high place or heaven in Hebrew.
So he's basically saying Obama's name is a coded message about Satan falling from heaven. A little dramatic, don't you think?
It definitely feels like he's reading a lot into it. But he doesn't stop there. He dives into Obama's middle name, Hussein, which means beautiful, handsome, or good.
Okay, and what's the sinister implication there?
He questions why Obama would choose that name, suggesting it's a deliberate attempt to present a false image, a charming facade, masking a darker truth.
So, according to him, a nice-sounding name equals satanic deception. That seems like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it does feel like he's reaching for connections that aren't really there. But remember, he's trying to convince his audience that Obama is this master manipulator, someone who deliberately crafted his image to deceive the world.
All right, so we got the name breakdown. Where does he go next with this Obama theory?
Well, he brings up this idea of Obama's stay-behind network, this notion that Obama is still pulling strings behind the scenes, even after leaving office.
Okay.
He even suggests that Obama could become the head of the United Nations and fulfill the role of the Antichrist from that position.
Whoa, hold on. He's actually suggesting that Obama's going to take over the UN and rule the world.
He doesn't explicitly say that's going to happen, but he definitely plants that seed of doubt in the listener's mind.
It's like he's building up this conspiracy theory, layering these speculative claims on top of each other to create this sense of impending doom.
Right, and he also points out that when Obama was elected for his second term, some people refer to it as his second coming.
Right, like it was some kind of divine event.
Exactly, and then he brings up Obama's nickname, GOAT, meaning greatest of all time. He doesn't explain why this is relevant, but he seems to be implying that it's somehow connected to the Antichrist's supposed greatness and power?
He's definitely trying to paint Obama as this larger-than-life figure, someone who wields immense influence and commands this devoted following.
Yeah. He's playing on people's fears and anxieties about powerful figures and the potential for them to abuse their power.
So he's laid out his case against Trump and Obama, painting them both as potential antichrists. What's next on his apocalyptic agenda?
He dives into a detailed description of the mark of the beast, citing Revelation 13.16. He talks about how this mark will be placed on the right hand or forehead, and how people won't be able to buy or sell without it.
This is where he really starts to tap into people's fears about technology and government control.
Exactly. He speculates about how this mark could be implemented using microchips, digital tattoos, or even QR codes. He paints this picture of a future where our bodies are branded with this mark of allegiance to the Antichrist, and those who refuse are ostracized and persecuted.
Yeah, it's a pretty chilling image. He's playing on our anxieties about surveillance and the erosion of privacy in the digital age.
He emphasizes the idea that the Antichrist will force people to accept this mark, making it a condition of participation in society. He even suggests that the Antichrist might use a guillotine to behead those who resist, highlighting the brutality of this future regime.
It's a very dramatic and graphic portrayal of the end times. He's trying to evoke a sense of fear and urgency in the listener.
Right. He wants people to feel like they're on the brink of this major crisis, a battle between good and evil. That will determine the fate of humanity.
So he's presented a pretty bleak vision of the future. Does he offer any hope or any way out of this apocalyptic nightmare?
He does shift gears towards the end of the sermon, offering a message of hope through salvation in Jesus Christ.
Thank goodness for that. I was starting to get a little worried there.
Yeah, he reminds the listener that even in the midst of all this darkness and chaos, there is still a way to find peace and security. He encourages the listener to turn to Jesus for protection and guidance in these uncertain times.
So it's like he's saying, yes, the world is a scary place right now, but don't despair. There's still hope. Put your faith in Jesus and you'll be saved.
It's a classic evangelical message of hope and redemption, offering a sense of comfort and security in the face of these existential threats.
All right, so he's given us a lot to think about. He's laid out his theories, presented his evidence, and offered his solution. What's his final takeaway message?
He talks about the rapture, this idea that true believers will be swept up to heaven before the really bad stuff goes down during the tribulation period.
Okay, so he's appealing to that hope of escaping the apocalypse, being rescued before things get really messy.
Right. It's a comforting thought for those who believe in this kind of end times scenario.
It makes you wonder, though, if the Antichrist is supposed to be this master of deception, how can we be sure we're not being deceived right now?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, if this figure is supposed to be so skilled at manipulating people, maybe they've already infiltrated our society. Maybe they're already pulling the strings.
It's a thought-provoking idea. It really makes you question everything you see and hear. and maybe even question your own beliefs.
Exactly. It's a reminder to be discerning, to think critically, and to not just blindly accept what we're told.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on today. If you're interested in diving deeper into any of the biblical passages we've discussed, we'll be sure to include those in the show notes. In the meantime, keep your eyes peeled and your minds open. Because as we've learned today, the truth might be stranger than fiction.
Yeah, you never know what's lurking just around the corner.
Until next time, stay vigilant.
Yeah.
And stay skeptical.